Father's Day, and I remember that song when I was a kid, and my mother loved it, and everybody loved it, and it still brings back great memories. And I just wanted to play it. So again, for the fathers who are biological, for the fathers who are not biological, for the fathers who are doing a great job, for the fathers who are doing a good job, and for the fathers who's trying to find their way, happy Father's Day. Again, tonight we're gonna have a great show. I have State Rep Charles Potter, and I have my good buddy here, Calvin Brown, that great Republican. But first, I want to go to State Rep, and I want to introduce yourself, and I just want you to give a brief background. I know everybody know who you are, but again, for the ones who don't, again, first thing, my name is Julius Cephas. My wife always tells me to let everybody know. My name is Julius Cephas, and I'm hosting Community Crossfire tonight. But I want to go to State Rep Charles Potter and give a little background on where you grew up and how you grew up.
Okay. Of course, my name's Charles Potter, Jr. I'm fortunate enough to be blessed and honored to serve as state representative for the past 5 years. Previous to that, I was a councilman for 12 years. Born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, the city in which I love. Beautiful city. We have some pockets of resistance and problems now, but we're going to fix those. Come from a family of 10. I'm the 7th child, born the 7th month, 7th run in my life, so that's a really good number. I'm married to Velda Jones Potter, who is now the city treasurer. Have 2 sons, Charles Potter III and Brandon, which are 2 good young men, I'm pleased to say. I'm happy that they both have graduated from college and both are entrepreneurs. So I'm happy about that. But let me go back to my family. Every one of my brothers and sisters graduated from high school except one. My one brother died at 6 months old, and believe it or not, his name was Charles. And back in the old days, you had to skip a son before you named the son Charles again, because my father wanted to have a boy named after him, and that's how I got the name of Charles Potter Jr. Went to Harlan, Albert, P.S. DuPont High School, Delaware Tech College, got an associate's in computer programming, went to Wilmington College and got a bachelor's in business, and a lot of street knowledge from selling from my grandfather's farm, which many of you know, Oscar Bullock had the only farm in Southbridge. So we used to have to go door to door, and that's where I got my sales techniques from. I'll just stop there right now.
Okay, Calvin, the same thing. If you can give a brief background of yourself, and then we're going to get into the good questions.
Name's Calvin Brown. I was born in Riverside, Northeast Wilmington. Lived there probably between Riverside and what people call the Bucket for the last 20 years. Went to Northeast Elementary School. Then graduated from George Gray, because we moved across the highway. I had to go to George Gray for my final year. Went to Warner Junior High, but I only made it to the 8th grade, because then they moved everything. So then I went to P.S. DuPont from 9th through 12th. I went to P.S. DuPont, graduated 74, signed up, went in the Air Force. Excuse me. Went in the Air Force because I didn't want to get in trouble. And didn't seem like a lot of opportunity. So I went to the United States Air Force, served honorably in the United States Air Force. Went to Delaware Tech for 2 years, like Charles. Ended up graduating from Eastern Theological Seminary. That's where I got my bachelor's degree in theology from. Been working at the Veterans Hospital, supervisor in environmental management service. I've been here 25 years. Own my own barbershop. I'm a licensed state barber, fully insured, pay my taxes. I knew you Democrats would like to hear that. Pay all my taxes, and been married to former Benita Green for the last 35 years. Got 3 children. My oldest son, Bashir, Emir. Bashir is a phlebotomist at Christiana. Emir, my middle son, he teaches school in Brooklyn. And my daughter teaches school at a child care center in Newcastle. I got 7 grandchildren. I came from a family of 14. So back then, people had a lot of children. So like the Potters, like me and the Potters,
That's right.
used to fill up the Sunday school.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, back when we went to the Mother Church of God in Christ,
Yes.
it was a whole bunch of. We got a little religious background too.
Yes, we
We
did.
started off. We wasn't the greatest kids all the time, but we did.
No.
Somebody did invest a little in us, so
Yes,
we
they
got a
did.
little background. We love this town. I've been in this town all my life. I lived on 3rd and Clayton. I bought a house there. I've been there for the last 28 years. I pastor the New Life Christian Center, Church Christ Holiness USA. I serve as the district chairman. I cover from Connecticut down to D.C. As the district chairman, I'm the second man to the presiding bishop. Next in line to be bishop. They probably
All
won't
right.
take me, but
He'll make it.
I'm coming up. A lot of people don't think I'm that kind of guy, but I got other things that I do. But I love the city. I ran unsuccessfully twice for office, one for county council and one for state representative. It was a great experience for me. Got me involved in politics, helped me to meet a lot of people, to try to do stuff in my neighborhood. We sponsor Hilltop Day every year. We had a great turnout every year, at least 1,200 people. So this is what I do. You know, I love this town. This is my city. Born and raised here. This is everything I know right here in Wilmington.
Okay, we
Can I
go.
mention one thing? Because I got to go home tonight. I didn't mention the fact that I have been married for 38 years, and we actually been together, Val and I, since 1971. That's 46 years. I think that's a pretty good track record.
Oh, that's a great track record.
And owned my own business for over 30 plus years, the insurance business. We also owned a mortgage business, and now my son has added the Potter real estate business, which I'm very proud of him, you know, for selling real estate and hiring people to work for him.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Now, since we didn't finish with the bottom line, now let's get back to community crossfire. No, I appreciate it, but I have some questions I want to ask State Rep. Okay, you done a lot of. Okay, you was on City Council for 12 years, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to talk about your environmental justice, your eminent domain, because that's pretty aggressive for a city councilman. So just talk about the environmental justice, your protection of homeowners and environmental justice.
Well, as a council person, I did write a letter to Ruth Van Minner, who was the governor at that time, and John Carney was the lieutenant governor. Cancer is one of the most devastating diseases there is, and particularly in Wilmington, the state of Delaware. So I wrote a letter to make sure they did a study on cancer clusters so people can see where the sicknesses was taking place. And then when they tracked it, you know, it takes place progressively in a large portion, excuse me, of Delaware. So we got a lot of cleaning up. We have done a lot of cleaning up.
Yeah.
And as it relates to eminent domain, I don't believe and still don't believe as a state rep that the state nor the city has the right to take anybody's property to give it over to a business unless it's for a major road that's used for the majority of the people.
Okay. Now let me ask you this real quick. Okay, you put something in there for the cancer cluster studies. Okay, what did they find out? You know, about the cancer cluster, like, because Delaware, I know Delaware is what 45% higher than the national average in cancer, and they got the hot spots. Just talk about, because my brother passed away from prostate cancer. Plus, he worked at a chemical place, and so just talk about that and why did you do that? Why did you do
Well,
study?
you know, I was moved to do it because I've been an environmentalist all my life. I worked with the River City Committee. I worked with Susan Collins, the Honorable Sam Guy, Matt Cochran, and many other people to make sure the city of Wilmington was clean in many areas. My mother passed from cancer, and so did my father. And I just seen so many people have problems with cancer. So when they did the study, you can go online to the state website and you can pull up cancer clusters, and you'll see a map, and it's dotted with all the areas where the high levels of cancer is at. So what it did, it also had us target in on what types of cancers that people were getting in the state of Delaware.
Okay, Calvin, do you have any?
If I wanted to talk, because I know I can attest to this, actually how I got involved in EPA or environmental issues is through State Representative Potter. You know, I think a lot of times people think if you're a Republican, you don't care about the environment, but I do. I have to live in it, my grandchildren, and Representative Potter was the first person that really brought me up to speed about the cancer and the problems like that. But has you been able to get any assistance from federally from the Environmental Protection Agency to help with these studies, and then not only with the studies, with some of the cleanup in terms of factories or chemical companies? Have you been?
Without a doubt, on the federal level and the state level, when you hear people talk about brownfield cleanups,
Yeah.
that money comes from the state and comes from the federal government. When we clean up all these sites and repurpose them for reuse to bring jobs back into the state and through the city. And we also, with the River City Committee, we had got a grant for $50,000 to help do the work of the Halby site in Wilmington, which was a Superfund site here in the city of Wilmington. Along with that, we helped to bring the cleanup of the CSOs. You heard of that?
Yes.
Combined sewer overflows. Then we also helped restrict the height of the dump. Remember Dump to Dump March?
Yes,
Did you
I
march
remember
in
that. Yeah, well, I didn't march, but I remember it though.
We did that, and so they wanted to take that height beyond 290 feet. We made sure that was restricted. So I've done a lot of work on environmental issues, and right now there's an issue related to the Coastal Zone Act, and I am an environmentalist, but if we can relax the coastal zone and do things cleanly, I'm in support of that.
Okay, now what I want the community to understand is that a lot of times when our state rep, when we have people who step out and fight hard issues, a lot of times the community don't get behind them. And you are only good as your team. And everybody knows somebody with cancer. Delaware
That's right.
has the highest cancer in the nation. And we need you to get behind not just Childs, anybody who's trying to do things to protect us. You know, and I think it's good. Now, also, I would like to see some of these chemical giants that who dumped all the stuff in their community help people pay for cancer, for the treatment of cancer, because nobody's talking about that.
Well, DuPont, which is one of our largest employers, is no longer DuPont anymore. They served for several years, and along with a lot of the profits they made, there was a lot of problems as it related to contamination. Delaware City Oil Refinery, they spew contaminants in the air, and they need to have these burners on that clean what they push out. So people have to be well aware of what's going on in their community. Not only is pollution toxic, but the things that are happening in our community is very toxic, and we're going to talk about those.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I just wanted people to know some of the things that you're doing related to cancer, some of the fights that you have taken on, not just you and others.
Yes.
And everybody who's involved needs to be commended for it. And again, even with the eminent domain, even things that you're stepping up to, sometimes you get a bad rap because a lot of times when you fight the power, there's a pushback.
Well, I think Julius is saying a lot there, Reverend.
Yeah.
And I believe what he's saying is this. When it came to eminent domain, we had a lot of businesses, large business people who wanted to take over small businesses in certain areas. And, then the newspaper is always jumping on when it's related to, they think it's going to make a lot of money. But it's not always conducive and fair to the people. And I'm a people person, So I'm sanctioned to help the people first. I'm sanctioned to bring in jobs, but I'm not going to sit here and allow someone to take advantage of people. So you'll hear the newspaper say a lot of things about Charles Potter Jr., but if you know me, you know me. Been in this community for most of my life. We sponsor teams. We do a lot in the community. We love our people. We stay when others run.
And it's good that, one of the things that I think Julius alluded to, what I call the low-hanging fruit. It's easy to pick up an issue and run with it when it's right there almost on the ground.
Right.
It doesn't require any effort. But it's difficult to get a ladder and go up and get the fruit that's maybe is not as ripe, but you see promise in it.
Correct.
You've been that kind of person, and we need more community servants who are willing to take on issues that need to be addressed. And even if the majority of the viewing audience is not aware of some of these issues, this is what a representative republic is. A representative republic, we elect somebody to go and represent us.
Yes.
Because it's stuff that we miss or not concerned about. But reason why we elect people like Representative Potter is that he's going to take the time to do work that we maybe not have the time to do or not the insight to do. So when I see these issues being addressed, not this low-hanging fruit, but some of these difficult issues like environmental studies, how we make environmental studies work with business ventures.
Yes.
I know you're a businessman.
Yes.
A lot of people think if you're a environmentalist, you can't be business friendly. But I think there's a happy medium in there.
It is.
Where you can still be competitive and produce a good product and still be profitable for the community, but at the same time, keep people air clean and water clean.
That's correct.
Now, state rep, and you was, like I said again, you was a councilman for 12 years. Why did you decide to run for state rep first district?
Well, I've always believed that I could do more. You know, actually, before being elected, I was doing community work all the time. But I found that if I wasn't at the table, it took me a much longer time to get things done. And as serving as a state representative, I'm able to move large sums of money where they're needed quickly, able to get answers and help a lot of people.
How did you get, okay, excuse me, because you, I mean, even to my surprise, you probably moved quicker on a powerful committee your first term down there. How did you, I mean, I know you can't tell us how you did it, but I mean, I don't know anybody else, right, who moved so quickly to be on the bond committee, so you're doing something right. So
He wants to know my formulas.
Yeah,
I can't get my formulas out, right?
Right?
I mean,
No,
well,
I was
give me the outline of your formula, as you call it.
Well, I'm a negotiator.
Okay.
You know, I'm not a
How you get on the
person-
bond committee, though? I mean,
I'm not a person who you can say we're going to negotiate a sale for something and just sell me a bill of goods. I'm going to say if you want something, I want something.
one more thing. Explain to the community what the bond committee does and what it controls.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to serve on the bond committee, and the bond committee deals with infrastructures, bridges, roads, buildings, anything that's a structure, you know, that you had to deal with.
So y'all the money,
permanent structure.
y'all the money people.
We deal with a lot of money. I was fortunate to move several $100,000 to PAL and to the Banner Stadium in my first couple years, and move money into other areas along with the other group of people. I mean, and you have to be really quick down there, because if you're not, money, they'll pass a deal right in front of your eyes, and you'll miss out on the money.
Let's stay right there, because you brought up a couple of things that kind of piqued my interest. You a negotiator, because you said I'm not prepared to just give away stuff without something being given in return.
Right.
We gotta learn how to manage that. Now that kind of sounds a little bit like Donald Trump. I mean, because that's what he.
You're not saying Donald Trump.
No, I'm just saying y'all got the same skill sets, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, we have to learn, and this is why that sometimes
Donald's in trouble right now. Do you know that, right?
let's not talk about that, right? Let's talk
You
about
brought it up, though, but you brought it up, Cal.
I'm just using it as an example.
That was a bad example,
Representative
Cal.
Representative Potter is a businessman first.
Okay.
That's right.
And what he's been able to do is bring them same skill sets.
Okay.
You heard him say that his was it your grandfather had the
grandfather had a
farm,
farm.
and he learned to negotiate
That's right.
with that fruit and corn and
Going
stuff
door
back
to
then,
door,
going
yes.
door to door.
I was with you until you said Trump. I was with you the whole time.
I mean, but we got let's let Trump.
I want to hear how he's going
Trump
to tie
is,
this in.
Trump
Come on,
is
tie
a
it in for us.
skilled businessman. We might disagree with his tactics, but here's what we can't disagree with. The amount that he has bought into America from other countries because he refuses to take stuff for nothing is the same kind of concept that Representative Potter's got on the bond committee, that I'm not giving away the state's money with no reciprocal value being in place. It's the principle.
Right. Nor am I giving away city assets or state assets without us negotiating and talking about these issues, because a lot of times you'll hear a lot of surface stuff in the newspaper, the radio, but I'm going to pull my papers out and I'm going to look at all the details to see exactly what it is. Then when people find out what it is, they say, oh, I didn't know that. That's why you elected me to be your representative, because you know you're going to be in good hands.
That's right.
We're gonna now. We definitely the second half. We're gonna get into Trump. But what I want to ask State Rep Childs is that you propose local control over the school districts. Can you
Yes.
explain what that means?
Our school, and let me just start off by this. We had a
And
fantastic,
charter, when you get
and
chance
charter.
to.
We had a fantastic time this week at the PS DuPont reunion. all-class reunion. And let me tell you why I say this. We need to have a high school or high schools within the city of Wilmington where it brings people together. It's a place where people come together and help build their families. It brings the mothers, the fathers, the children in. And at our reunion, we had people from all over, and the families were there. I put the legislation together for WEAC. That's the Wilmington Improvement Commission. I also put a moratorium on charter schools. It was Resolution 56, because I just believe there were just too many charter schools popping up in our city. People wanted to make money, but you were grabbing 300 children here, putting 300 there, 300 here, 200 here, and a lot of these schools were closing up. Charter schools were meant to be specialized in something. So why would we allow charter schools to pop up that were doing the same things and competing with our public schools?
Let me say this about, and this is my opinion, this is not state rep's opinion or not Calvin's opinion. My problem with charter schools, we have referendums every 3 years, seem like, but yet the charter schools don't have a referendum. They're draining the public schools' money and they're giving it to the charter schools, but yet they don't have a referendum. I think it's unfair because some of the better charter schools that we pay for, our children can't get in.
That's correct.
And it's wrong. It was wrong yesterday. It's going to be wrong tomorrow, and it's going to be wrong next week. Again, that's my opinion.
You did say that was your opinion.
Yeah, yes. Because again, they're draining the public schools' funding. But why can't charter schools have a referendum?
I disagree with this perspective. See, I see the problem. I see the end result, but here go the issue. The charter schools only came about because of the failure in the public school system. This is why local control becomes critical. If the public schools wouldn't fail, then there would be no need for the charter schools. See, and when we went to school, the public school system ran to a T where we graduated from schools. Even at Howard, they had Voc Tech. Wilmington High had business. P.S. DePont had business. We had inner city schools that, see, only time a need arises when there's a problem. See, and the charter schools arose out of a problem in the public school system.
But let me ask you this, and again,
It was a created problem.
there you go. But see, my thing is this.
It was a created problem.
My thing is this, and what you're
It
saying.
was a created problem.
Yeah, the created problem was Wilmington, we had the best school system in the state. Our teachers were paid more, and then a lot of the suburbanites said, well, their school system, the teachers are making too much. We had a graduation rate of over 85%. And then when they start cutting to our system, tore our school apart, then that's when the schools start to decline.
My thing has always been this, and again, I've said this 10, 15 years ago. They say schools got bad, public schools got bad when they took prayer out. Public schools got bad when they took black men teachers out. And I've said that.
Both. Prayer should be in the schools.
I'm not saying that, but I know one thing. When the teachers had a problem, they would call, or they would send the kids up to Mr. Hart, to this one or that one.
Right.
When you take that male teacher out, he straightened out a lot of problems. That's just my opinion.
Do we agree, Reb?
We
you
do
believe
agree.
prayer should be in school?
We agree with the whole, how they eliminated the whole concept of the morality of the city.
Right.
The city, we had value structure in the
Yes, we
city.
did.
And
Yes.
those values transcended from the home
Yes.
to the school to the church. And so wherever you want, there was reinforcement of those values.
That's correct.
And so now you see that those same values are not being reinforced. Now look at the problems we had then. People chewing gum in school, maybe cutting class. Those were big issues.
Right.
Now you got kids coming to school with firearms.
But you still haven't addressed what I said as far as the black male teacher.
Yeah, but I'm coming to that.
Okay.
All that undermining black men as a whole
That's
became
what
a problem.
society has been
because,
doing.
See, here's what the state did. This is my opinion. The state, by providing, and I'm not saying this is not good, welfare, took the role of the man out of the hands of the man.
Sure.
Because now the father don't have to worry about providing for his children, because the state became the father. The state make the rules in the house. It pays the mother. It provides housing for the mother. And if you can't get married and stay on the program, because now they want to put you out. So what it does, it encourages illegitimate childbirth. It helps the abortion industry press on. and it de-roles the role of the black male. And so the black male is being undermined by the state of Delaware. And so the state of Delaware has put the black man in a position where he's no longer needed in his family. So now he's got no control over his children, and he's not in the school system. Because most people, I'll give you a case example. This will take me a minute. My son was going to the charter school of Wilmington when they first opened up. When it was a problem at the school, the first thing when they called home, they said, is your mother there? Now, I answered the phone. I said, no, my mother's not here. Who are you looking for? Well, they said my wife's name. I said, no, I'm Calvin Brown. I'm the father.
I'm the dad, huh?
I live here 24 hours a day.
Okay.
I said, if this is about my child, this is what I told him. From now on, you call me and not my wife. I do all that kind of, I'll be up there to talk to you. But what they wanted to do, and me and my wife, I had to go actually see the principal and the counselor. I said, now I told you to stop calling my wife because they so used to dealing with black females. Because the black male ain't home, that this is what undermined black leadership. And it's
But you know what, Cal, you
just
make a
answered
good point
you answered
there.
I mean, no, it's a great point, but you answered my question about what I said, though. But go ahead.
Yeah,
go
he
ahead.
makes a great point there. Although the system may try to undermine, and they do, it's incumbent on the black male to be there with his family. Any children you have, you should take care of them. And that's a major problem we have, that guys think that they can just shack up with all these different women, have these kids, and keep moving like that's some big deal. That's a bad deal.
Yeah.
It's a bad deal, but the state has asked them.
Yeah, but let me say this
Yeah.
too. Our community also has to put more skin in the game. We got the highest suspension rate, but we don't go to the PTA meetings. We got to start being held accountable for a lot of our actions, because a lot of our problems is not the system, it's us.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And so it's half and half, but some things that we can fix and we need to fix. And again, people will go to see Jay Street, they will go to see Devin, who are great, but if you try to get them to come to the PTA meetings, they don't come.
Right.
I mean, so we got to get more skin in the game. We got to stop. Like
I know we say this, but let me say
wait a
this.
minute, hold on. Let me. And again, even with the shootings,
Right.
you can't blame the shootings on the police. The police not doing the shootings.
Right.
We're doing our
right.
kids are doing the shootings, and nobody's talking. I mean, some things we just got to give tough love.
We do.
But
Right.
I still got some more
Can I-
questions.
can I just
yeah, you
answer
can do
that?
that. Then I want to go to another question I got for you.
Our community, we have a percentage of our community that causes the problems. Over 90% or more of our people are doing a good thing. And I don't want people always look at the station and say, well, everything's bad in Wilmington or in Delaware in our country. No, most of our people do the right things. Do we have some people who are out of line? Yes, and we have to fix that.
Okay. Now let me again. You put a bill, HB Bill 343,
Right.
the Crime Prevention Rehabilitation Act. Can you talk about that?
I put that bill in 5 years ago, and at this time, crime prevention rehabilitation is simply saying we don't want to over-incarcerate. We don't want to incarcerate at all. We believe that we can help stop crime, and we can rehabilitate the people who have committed a crime. Our prisons are bulging, and we don't want that to continue. A lot of people may want that to continue, but I don't. We have passed many aspects of that bill, where we reduced the minimum mandatories on several issues. Just the other day, we had a situation, Reverend, where there's a bill that's going to reduce the amount of time people stay in prison because indigent people or people who can't afford to pay bail will get out. It makes no sense to have somebody in jail who has a $50 or $100 bail or anything under $1,000. Bail's bond people got mad at me, but it didn't bother me at all because it's the right thing to do. It helps to reform the system. What they were saying is that we were going to put criminals on the street, but we have different categories. Of course, we're not going to put rapists and sex offenders out on the street, not at all. But the only difference between us and the state, and I got to thank Representative J.J. Johnson, who sponsored that bill. It's his bill, I was a sponsor. Okay, so they were calling us on our cell phones and all their lobbying, fine. The only difference in what we do we're saying we're going to let them out and they're going to have supervision, and they're going to have things to do. The Bellsbond people wanted to still, whether they're indigent or not, as long as they paid, they would put them on the street. So there's no difference, okay?
Now, what do you think, too, and this is for both of y'all, with the opium problem, it has changed our country. And the poorer the state, the higher the opium problem is.
Well, you know, when we were working on House Bill 343, crime prevention and rehabilitation, we went down to the morgue, Liz Allen, my good friend Nick DeHatt, and a few other people to look at statistics. Yes, we have a problem with shootings. We might have had, you know, 2 or 3 people, which I know you won't take this wrong, where we're dying due to shootings in Wilmington, and that's in our community. But the white community had a problem. You've had 60, 70, and 90 people dying of overdose, and we told them at that time, but they didn't want to realize that now when you talk about opioids, you know, it's like, okay, it's an issue, but it's not the same issue how they wanted to treat when young black people were smoking marijuana or when crack was out here. It was unfair. I talk the same way I'm talking to you about these things now is the same way I talk about this down in the General Assembly. I said when.
But what's being, what do they do? What's going on now with it? Because I know.
Oh, they put a lot of money in it. We're going to open up many more drug addiction places, which we wanted a long time ago, but they didn't do it as quickly when it was a problem in the black community.
And I'm glad they're doing it because it's
and it's needed. I don't want to see whether you're black or white with a problem. We want you to have help, but don't discriminate against our people and wait.
Right. And it did, I think, as the Representative Potter pointed out, that the situation certainly appeared to be one-sided, that when it was a problem in the black community, it didn't seem to be getting as much attention. But as the problem began to spread out in mainstream America, where suburban kids are, I mean, I look around my neighborhood. I live on 3rd Street. I got numerous white people who don't live in that neighborhood, up and down all day, buying drugs. And heroin is the drug of choice.
Yes.
And it's laced with fentanyl, it's deadly, and it's destroying suburban America. I watched a special not long ago where Newcastle County is one of the highest counties in the country in terms of heroin usage.
Yes.
And most of these are suburban white kids. And this is what happens when, here's what I learned a long time ago in Bible study in church. The scripture says, a little leaven leavened the whole lump. Now, I didn't understand that because they was talking. But
explain that.
Let me give you a little exposition, we call it, expository teaching.
The short version or long version?
The short version.
Yeah.
My mother used to make her own bread.
Right.
And she used to take a little yeast, pour it in the dough.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, the whole lump will rise up.
Okay.
The little leaven is that if you don't deal with this problem here, before you know it, you got a whole rised up lump. Yep. And that's what society has got to stop doing when they see problems affecting a small segment of society. Correct. Instead of dealing with that right there and stopping it, we wait till it's spread, and now it's a problem.
Now let me say this to both of y'all's point, and some of it definitely is racism, and some of it is organization. What I mean by this, when they was trying to build a power plant in Newark, you would go to the meetings, it was 400 or 500 strong against it. Every time, I remember my mom with Riverside, they organized, them women out there, they was strong, but we tend to sit and complain, but we don't come out and organize and go at them. But every time
certain sections of the city, certain.
I know whatever, because when they try to build development in Hope Castle, everybody came out. When you go to the meetings out there, when they're against something, they let the politicians know. When we're against something, we go in the kitchen and sit and talk about it.
No, Julius. Let me just correct you if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And when I say that, that doesn't happen in my district, in the first district,
No,
in
I'm
several
talking
districts.
general now.
Okay, but so a lot of times people think you broad brush and everybody say so in some areas. Because when I hear people come on this show, not just your show, and they say none of the politicians, all this, that's not true. You got people working. Say some. Areas that don't have strong civic groups may let things bypass them. My job as an elected official, we had an issue on Banner Stadium, right, where they tried to push that through quickly. My job as an elected official is to make sure our community can vet things. That's my job. And that's simply what I did, is say, let the people be heard. Because if they wanted to put tennis courts on the dog park over across from Warner School, my constituents would be outraged. My job would be to say, hold up, let's allow them to vet it. It may be a good project, but people had a right to hear it. Some places do that, Julius.
The point I'm trying to raise to our community is that you got to get out there
And get involved.
And get involved.
Yeah, I agree
and
with
I got to
you.
agree
Right.
with Josie and my man Church, Lenny. They went out there to Old Newcastle. They rumbled, got
Sure,
the stuff
yeah.
to the church. She didn't give up.
That's right.
But that's what I'm talking about. We got to stop sitting.
But there's a reason for that.
I understand. The reason is, regardless of what the reason is that they went out there and they got it done.
No, but there's some underlying issues here that I don't think you brought to the surface yet. And I want to just...
Okay, but what I'm saying is the people, we got to start putting more skin in the game.
I agree with you.
We got to start getting behind people who are fighting.
Let me tell you how we lost the skin there. I'm jealous of the first district. I live in the 7th City Council district. The first district, where State Representative Potter not only was city councilman, but represents as the state representative, that's a district that of minorities where you got a majority of the minorities there are homeowners.
Correct.
That's the skin in the game you're talking
Right,
about.
yes.
And you look at a lot of these
And
other...
it's one of the highest educated groups, too.
Yeah, educated and home ownership. They go together.
Yeah.
Now, you look at some of these other minorities communities, there's a lot of transients living there. You got, I look at neighbors in my community, they moving in and out all the time. I might got 2 or 3 neighbors that been there since I've been there. But the rest of the whole block is just mostly renters. And so there's no stake there. And so, and then the education is low. You got kids dropping out of school in 8th grade. The only thing they know is hustling or slinging. This is all they do. So these neighborhoods, this is why in the black community, you need a super majority to win an election, because if you got a fair fight, we the loser. Because not in the first district, it won't work. Because and I tell you, I'm envious of them, because I like how they hold themselves together over there. I live in the 7th, that ain't the case there. You go down in the 4th district, down on the east side, on the certain areas of the north side, it's not the case there. And this is why, although we represent a majority of the population in the city, this is why we are underrepresented. Because if we use our vote the same way the other parts of society did, we would not only dominate city politics, but we would control who becomes the governor of this state, who becomes the insurance commissioner, who becomes the auditor. But because they know we don't vote, we don't count.
Well,
and that's where we're
in the problem. I gotta say, in some areas.
In some areas. That's why I brought the area out.
Yeah, right.
I want to go to your clip too in a minute.
Okay, can I just make a few statements?
Sure.
I totally agree with Reverend Cal, and part of the problem is that we have I was against residency when they allowed the police to move and the firemen. When that happened, we had over 800 or more people leave our city. And what they did, they transitioned those homes they used to own into tenant, rental units. A lot of people, and I'm not saying them, are not taking care of their rental units. There should not be a rental unit that sits vacant for 6 or more months in the city. And then, furthermore, to allow them to board them up and stay boarded up for a year. If they are not going to put that house, that property back online within 6 months to a year, it needs to be sold. If we can, that's half of our problem. If we go throughout our city and say, this has been here for 2 years, 5 years, get rid of that abandoned house. Let's list the name of these owners of these properties online and put their pictures on these houses and say, do something with these vacant properties or get rid of them.
Okay, I want to go to your clip in 1 second, but what I want to say too is this, that, you know, at the port, and we're going to do a show about the port soon. We go to court, but I know they ready at the port. We got 2 cranes.
Right.
Our local got the cranes. We went down to the bond committee. We went to the Sunset Committee. But when they
Sure
put the
did.
cranes up, we even voted. Our union even voted that who picked the cranes. But when it was time to I guess the accolations of who got the cranes, they didn't have us there. But what I want to say is this: the reason why I'm bringing that point up is this, that when they built that library on Route 9, I hope that they don't forget Tom Gordon and Jay Street and whoever else was involved. I hope the players who was involved for that library, I hope that they don't forget them, because I've seen that where people had the idea and they get it through, and then the day of the ceremony.
That's the right thing to do.
And I think it is the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. Tom Gordon and many other people, Jay Street,
Yeah,
a lot of people.
I'm not missing names, but
And if I miss some names, they have stock. They made that happen. That library, and even Matt Myers is out there, and John Carney, the governor. That library should be named after Tom Gordon and some other people.
Yeah.
You know, the truth is, like, my situation is, I'm not afraid of anything.
No,
you
no,
know?
I was just bringing. I
And
was
no,
bringing it
not
up.
that, but our people got to quit being afraid. If they quit being afraid, we wouldn't have a lot of problems in the neighborhoods if they would get out and take their neighborhoods. And people sit back and say, if I say something's going to happen. Well, something is happening, and it's not good, is it, Reverend?
Terrible.
Can I go? I want to go. I'm going to ask you about Ivy. Can you play this clip? 45 HB 13. I want to talk about the next bill, HB 13. Ivy, if you go to the.
This bill makes sure that we judge the dog based on its own behavior, not based on the breed. And particularly, we can say pit bulls and some other dogs have been discriminated against in the past, but now this is a dog-neutral bill. The good thing about it has a lot of protection items in it if you look in the bill. I'll mention one right off. Every dog should have a leash on it. And we're going to hold the owners responsible for their behavior and each individual dog on that dog's behavior. So we're happy that this bill has passed. As they mentioned, we'll be the 21st state in the country to have this type of legislation.
Yeah, State Representative Charles Potter had a great bill about dogs. Everybody knows I'm into dogs, and dogs do so much for our community. And I just want you to talk about your bill.
Before I do that, Julius is one of the best dog trainers around. Recently, you just lost one of your family members. And what's the dog's name?
Theo.
Theo,
Yeah,
which
Theo.
you loved and was a beautiful dog. And so my
Okay,
condolences
no
to
problem.
you. Yeah.
I don't. You
But-
get me beat up, but go ahead. Go ahead, talk about your bill, Charles.
That particular bill for dogs it was a dog breed neutral bill. And what it simply says is that you cannot discriminate against any dog. And most of the time when people would think about a dangerous dog, they would think about a pit bull, a chow, German shepherds, and some other dogs. So now you can't discriminate against those dogs. And, you know, there's a lot of important safety features involved in that bill. I won't be able to explain them all now. But of course, every dog should be leased. We know that. Every dog should have its shots. And you would notice a lot of people walking around with pit bulls and other dogs. And pit bull is a dog of choice for a lot of the young people in the city. And there's no need for people to be getting locked up for having a dog. Okay?
Bad owners, though. You said
It's
that.
the
I
owner.
heard you say something.
It is
there.
the owner, right.
And that's the problem, I think, because the dog potentially could
Potentially.
be more dangerous than other
Right,
dogs.
right.
And put in these circumstances with these bad owners. I watched a little kid had a little poodle, a little teeny one. He was in the park with the poodle.
Okay.
A guy was coming down the street with 2 pit bulls. He had them on a chain. They got away from me. One of the pit bulls had the dog throat. The other one had his back legs. And I mean, they just were shaking. The little dog was screaming. Now, I wanted to run over there, but the dogs was vicious looking. Now, I mean, you know, I'm just thinking, I'm not as young as I used to be. I mean,
That would have been fool if you was young.
and
Go ahead.
see, he had a stick, and he was trying to get the dogs off of him. When the time he got one, then he had to chain one up, and then try to get the other one. When he got done with them dogs, that little poodle was wore out.
But
and
again,
I
it's
felt,
the owner.
Calvin,
but he didn't have control of
but
them.
you gotta,
Right, he didn't
but
have
wait
control,
a minute, but
right.
Calvin, before you give a story like that, you got to warn the public. You got to warn the community that, this ain't PG-13.
I mean, no. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just showing you.
No, he
this
was-
is why the
right.
law was like that
Right,
because
right.
they just not the regular. If them dogs get a hold of you, you in
You know
trouble.
what? I would like to see that more people learn how to train dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
they
what I
do.
mean?
Right.
And one thing I want to ask you, because I was one more clip, and then we're gonna let you guys
Okay.
go into it.
Yeah.
But it's another clip that I want to ask you about. Is this okay? Bill Cosby was acquitted. Okay, for
Not acquitted.
I'm sorry. Was
It was a hung jury.
a hung jury?
Yeah.
Mistrial, whatever you want to call it.
Mistrial.
But what I want to ask you is this: that the first prosecutor said that he didn't have enough evidence to charge him in 2005. Now, this prosecutor, coming back 12 years later, they spent millions of dollars on this case. Now he's going to retry him. But yet people who don't have good public defenders, they don't have enough resources, and they spend the taxpayers' money. And before y'all answer, I want both of y'all on this. Ivan, can you just show that clip real quick? And I want y'all's opinion on this.
Louisiana's criminal justice system is massive. We have the world's highest incarceration rate. Public defenders, who represent well over 85% of all defendants, receive less than 1% of all the funding.
The current system's broken. These primarily black, poor people sit in jail for months and months and months without a lawyer. If what were happening to young black men in Louisiana were happening to elder white men, this system would end tomorrow.
The constitutional rights of the overwhelming majority of the people who enter our criminal justice system are infringed, and that's simply because our public defense offices are based on an unstable, unreliable, and inadequate funding mechanism.
Louisiana has purposely decided not to properly fund indigent defense, and instead we have what they generously call a user pay system, which means the primary method of payment is through speeding tickets and court cost. It's completely erratic. It changes by year. And a lot of sheriffs and district attorneys' offices have started creating these diversion programs where they will dismiss the charges for someone to pay them, which means the public defender never gets the money. And secondly, the user pay system doesn't work because it doesn't provide enough funding.
It has not worked for 30 years, and Louisiana needs to think of a different approach.
Public defenders are assigned to represent indigent defendants, which are the poor people in Louisiana who the system's otherwise failed. These are the people who have gone to broken schools or coming from broken homes, who don't have healthcare systems, and who are the most vulnerable populations.
It's time to reimagine the way that we treat people rather than just throwing people into cages.
Right now, I'm going to go to State Rep Charles Potter, but one part that wasn't shown in this clip was on 60 Minutes last month, that 15 public defenders quit because they said they got tired of sending thousands of innocent people to jail. So I just want your opinion. You think Bill Cosby, they should spend taxpayers' money when they don't have it? I mean, what's your opinion?
I have two schools of thoughts.
Okay.
If Bill Cosby actually did something, then he should be at fault. On the other hand, the women that I've seen and read about that came, it seemed like they were partying with him, and they came to get something out of the deal, and basically they were adults and they had agreed to certain things. And now 30 years later, they want to come back and sue the man. I believe part of that part is unfair. So
but
that's
the taxpayers' part, as far as retrying the case.
Well, if you had several attorneys look at it and say it's not a winnable case, yet they still move forward with that, I think that's unreasonable.
Well, I'm like Representative Potter. I don't believe Bill Cosby's innocent. And some of the crimes that he's alleged to have committed are heinous. If it was my sister that he drugged and raped, I wouldn't feel, like so many people want to just dismiss it. But as Representative Potter pointed out, I believe they came to get something from him, but they got more than they was bargaining for. Sometimes I tell my granddaughters, because I tell them, I said, listen, don't take gifts from little boys.
Right.
That's if you buy you a hamburger, that's one thing. If you buy you a gold chain, then he's looking for something.
That's correct.
There's no free lunch.
Right.
And it's really a message that you gotta communicate to a lot of young girls.
That's
because
right.
they become very vulnerable.
Yes.
And boys at some point become sexual. And so you could get yourself in a bad predicament. And I think some of these women, Bill Cosby is very influential. He's a very wealthy guy. I think some of them thought there was something in it for them.
And when they would come at 1 and 2 o'clock at
Yeah.
night, what are you?
Yeah, what are you doing?
For? Yeah.
I want to say one thing about Bill Cosby, and all I know is when they told him that it was a hung jury, that every day Bill Cosby was walking there, they carried him. When they told him that it was a hung jury, Bill Cosby was walking faster than the damn lawyer himself. He forgot that the guy was supposed to hold him up. He was booking, hey, and then he remembered. Oh.
You would too much now.
I swear to God, he's slow.
Oh,
Why
Lord.
should
Can I do some closing?
But what I want to do is,
Oh,
Steve,
Lord.
first thing I want to say is that you've been doing an excellent job, and just
thank
keep
you.
standing. And you fighting for everybody.
Right.
I mean, you fighting for everybody.
You know when you're doing the
And
right
but
thing.
hold up, let me. It's not bottom
Yeah.
line now.
Uh-huh.
But I'm gonna turn it over to you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You want?
I
No,
was messing
you
with
know
you.
you're doing the right thing when the newspaper and the radio is always want to write about you when they want to try to tear up your character. But guess what? I got character. My family has character. You had to do the right thing. If you weren't doing the right thing, then it'd be easy for people to do something to you. That's why we stay in prayer, Reverend.
Are you
all the
saying it's
time.
fake news?
It's fake news.
Oh, okay.
We stay in prayer, but I've been trying to bring jobs and trying to get DraftKings here. That'll bring about another $200,000 into the state. If we open up a new casino and do the bidding license, that'll bring in another $50 million. There was just a deal on the table with Verizon where if I had negotiated that deal, and I told members in my caucus that we could have brought in about another $50 to $100 million. We just can't let these good business opportunities get by because we need jobs. And it's the other things I say to my colleagues. Don't talk to me about Wilmington when you don't want to support us having our own school system. Don't talk to me about Wilmington when we had the highest unemployment rate and you don't want to help create jobs. Don't talk about Wilmington when you're building all these beautiful schools and helping all these other businesses outside Wilmington and you don't want to do it. It's unfair. I could not, and I said this on the floor, sit here as a legislator and I'm going to say discriminate against the city or anyone else, and as long as I'm satisfied, because our problem will sooner or later be your problem. It'll be knocking at your door because everybody has the right to live right, have health insurance, have a good education, and an equal opportunity.
And it is their problem.
That
You
Cowboy
notice,
ain't getting many
you notice
good
what's
Cowboys.
going on down in Middletown,
Yes, it's changing.
Dover,
Right.
different type of crimes. These things go back to what I said about earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you something, Representative, and I'm having a little light with you. But you sound like Donald Trump. You sound like a guy here with opportunity. You see business ventures. You tell them, I don't want to talk about this, but yet the paper want to talk about everything wrong with you. They want because you are in the way
I'm in the fight.
of progress.
I'm in the fight.
See, you
because
in the
I won't
way.
let
So
it
what
walk
you saying
over.
is, what
Yeah.
you saying, Calvin, is Trump's getting things done.
He's getting things done. I mean, look, if you look at things are booming economically. The stock market's up.
Is that for the Trump Tower or is that for the?
No, this is not the Trump time. This is economic development.
And one of the other things, I want to thank all of the people who support me and my family all the time. I'll come out to any community meeting, and people know when you call me, I get results.
Okay, they telling me to wind up, but again, I had a great time with.
We
state
had to
rep.
do it again.
We had with state rep.
Thank you for having me.
With my main man Calvin.
We come on all the time and get your ratings up,
Nick
man.
and Nick the Hat.
Telling that
you did
again.
well.
We give you the bottom
Again,
line. We give you a little bottom line.
everybody, all the fathers,
Little-
happy Father's Day.
Happy
If you-
Father's Day.
If you can play that record, color me Father, whatever. Play it for me, Ivan. Appreciate it. Good night.
Good night.
There's a man at my house, he's so big and strong. He goes to work each day and he